Shabbat Shalom and good Yantif. Just when you think the world can't get more challenging or more difficult, she throws us another curve. Just when you think your heart can't break anymore, something happens in the world that challenges us to still believe that the good in us will win. So I know that many people have come with heavy hearts tonight, learning in these past few hours the passing of the notorious RBG, the amazing Ruth Bader Ginsburg. No surprise that she would die on Erev Shabbat, on the new moon of the new year, for she was a tzaddik. She will continue to be a tzaddik, continue to teach us how to make sure the margins move to the middle, how to make sure that when people say feminist, they know that it means we are working to level the playing field for all people. Ruth Bader Ginsburg fought for everyone. She made sure that women's voices, that the voices that were often left out would be heard. And so I want to dedicate our new year to her legacy. Let us dedicate, and it's hard not to think about Bill Danforth too, who also passed this week. We've lost a lot of giants this year. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we're counting on you. You've taught us a lot. You've given us a lot. And we promise we will honor your memory, especially as we go into this new year, working hard to believe it will be a good year, a healthier year. And because of so much of what you've done, a year of peace and justice. So it is the new moon. And this new year comes, whether we are ready or not. I now wish I had even more time to prepare. As I watched the moon diminish in the night sky, I wanted to shout, "Stop! Give us more time. Give us more time to get control of this virus and put it behind us. Give us more time to get beyond the hurricanes and the storms. Give us more time to put out the fires. Give us time to put down the guns and feed and clothe and house those in desperate need. Give us more time to plant trees and seeds for peace." But the time is here. I see the glimmer of the new moon of Tishrei in the sky tonight. The new moon of the new year is smiling upon us, telling us that ready or not, she is here to gently light the way. And we will do our best to offer the prayers and perform the rites that will help each of us feel the holiness of the time that is upon us, of these days of deepening and these days of awe, from our homes and from our hearts. We will do our best to draw on the traditions that have redeemed generations during much more challenging time even than these. We will do our best to learn the lessons of these holy days and, ready or not, have them deliver us to the full moon of Sukkot, prepared to face the challenges before us, renewed and ready for a sweeter year, a healthier year, and a year, God willing, closer to peace. Parts of this service have been pre-recorded. You'll be able to see that as we've used images of the choir from past years so that we could feel the energy and the essence of these holy days, hear the music, hear the wonderful musicians that have joined us over the years. And so much of this was recorded before we knew of the passing of the notorious RBG, our beautiful, wonderful guide, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We are grateful to each of you joining us from your sanctuary homes. And I ask you, even though they may be bruised and broken a little bit, open your hearts to our new president right now, our new president, Rachel Delston, for she is about to welcome all of you on behalf of all of us gathering together in our online Sukkot Shalom, our shelter of peace, with our CRC family, with our friends, and with all of you who are joining us tonight.
My younger son, Charlie, went through a long period years ago where every single morning he would wake up and excitedly ask, "Is it a CRC day?" Pre-pandemic, Saturday was our CRC day. One Saturday in particular, after we had been to family service, followed by to the big service in Shabbat school, and then we were the last ones to leave a Menschmakers event at Royal Oaks Nursing Home playing bingo with seniors. My kids insisted on going back to CRC, even though it was late in the afternoon, because they didn't want their CRC day to end. Now, during the pandemic, every day is a CRC day, from Rabbi Karen's Passover play, which had my family cracking up, to Rabbi Daniel and Charlene Eel's amazing CRC Zoom camp, which I am forever grateful, to Rabbi Randy's Hashkivenu, which I listen to on repeat, to Rabbi Susan and Rabbi Jim's Stone Salon. There are CRC events happening online at almost every hour of the day. I encourage you to check them out. Everything is taped, so if you can't make it live, you can listen on your own schedule. I switched from reading the news before bed to streaming CRC before bed, and I highly recommend the switch. My blood pressure has never been better. Recently, at bedtime, my son Charlie couldn't sleep. He said he was thinking about George Floyd and grabbed his own neck and said he felt like he couldn't breathe. I thought, I need my rabbis. Now, I don't normally call my rabbis in the evening to get help with bedtime. Although, the night of the election of He Who Shall Not Be Named, I did reach out to Rabbi Randy at midnight, asking for advice on how to explain the election results to my kids the next morning. He responded instantly in real time with his ever-present sunshine and filled me with hope on that scary night. But the night Charlie couldn't sleep, since it was the pandemic and CRC seems to be streaming at all times, I thought, let's just open the iPad and see if anyone is on. It turned out Rabbi Susan and Rabbi Jim were just starting their Havdalah service. I typed in that Charlie was thinking of George Floyd and couldn't sleep. Rabbi Susan couldn't see us, but she read my message and talked directly to Charlie and told him a bedtime story during the service. It felt like she was holding my hand and tucking Charlie in. Our rabbis and CRC have been there for me every step of the way during the two pandemics, COVID-19 and racial injustice we are currently battling. And I hope that you feel that CRC has been there for you during this difficult time. In entering this new year, I want to leave you with a message of hope. This is artwork my older son Andy made at CRC Zoom Camp this summer. It says, "Black Lives Matter, different is good, try new things." I love what CRC is teaching our children, our future.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshon b'mitzvotav, v'tzivonu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat v'yom tov.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
The book of Numbers recalls how the beginning of the year was announced, with sacred assembly, with a stop from work, and with the sound of the shofar. We have a rubbing from a stone found near the corner where the southern and western walls on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem meet. It says on it, Tekiah. In fact, we could show it to you. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. I wanted to show it to you because it hangs up in this very room. So I wanted you to see the words Tekiah that come from the 1st century. Words that were etched on a stone that stood on that corner and showed where the Baal Tekiah would stand and announce the new moon from that Jerusalem hilltop. The stone may be from the 1st century, but the custom is ancient, and we have a long way to go from tonight until tomorrow when we hear the great Tekiah that is written on that stone. What we have here is the Zichron Trua, it says, the memory of Trua, the sound of longing and of desire, of waking us up that we may be radically present together. B'chodesh hashvi'i, in this 7th month. Be'echad lechodesh, on this very first day of that month. Yihiyeh lachem Shabbat Shabbaton, there will be for you a sacred assembly and a cessation from work. Zichron Trua, Mikra Kodesh, a day, it says, a day that the call of the shofar will wake us up to holiness.
Every year has a numerical sense and a linguistic sense. This year, 5,781, is the year of Pei and Aleph. Pei is 80, also mouth, thus language, thus communication. Also 80 by reason of special strength at 80. And Aleph, silent and one. Each thing was infinite things. The year of Pei and Aleph. Oh, 5,781 since the creation of the world as we reckon time. Jump into the swell of right. Being will follow. Be obsessed. Save your soul with vertical. Pop a word into your mouth. Pull the perfect Aleph. Come back as long as it takes. This year the sign of Pei and Aleph, all signs are significant. Pei for 80, also mouth, thus communication, and Aleph, the unity of one, with Aleph, dignified and silent. Soon, the time of our joy, you will speak, and you will tell us what you've learned.
We call each other to prayer with the words of the Baruch Hu.
wonderful to hear the choir again, even via video. So there's a wonderful teaching in the Zohar about the shofar, whose blast we will hear tomorrow. It says that there are 3 songs blown through the ram's horn. The song of the wind in one long, even blast. The song of fire in the 3-part blast, representative of the 3 parts of the flame. And the song of water sounded in multiple successive blasts, mimicking raindrops. Blowing the shofar then unifies the elements of fire, wind, and water, and brings them into a single voice that is the song of the earth. To weave together seemingly disparate parts into a cohesive, sacred whole. That is the message of Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, v'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha, ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi metzavecha, hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uvlektecha v'aderech, Ushokbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafo bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai, vehitem kedoshim lelohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiot lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. Over the past 5 years or so, I've been visiting a man in a correctional facility. Just recently, just before the pandemic, he was released to a halfway house program, a halfway home program, which was wonderful. But then he recently, not too long after that, left me a message to call him. And when I received the message, I got worried that maybe he'd gotten into trouble again. So I returned his call with some amount of trepidation. And then he told me why he was calling me, trying to reach me. It was because he wanted to find out how he could donate to the synagogue. May we all continue to journey from despair to hope, from injustice to justice, from bondage to freedom. This is Mi Chamocha, the song at the sea, our protest song, our freedom song.
Oh
there are many odd things about all of this. One of the odd things is that instead of looking at you, I'm looking at myself. So I guess I have to comment on what I'm wearing. I do make it a habit to wear a suit and tie on high holidays, but also at CRC each and every time there's a bar bat mitzvah especially. But I have a friend at CRC who will remain nameless, who every single time he sees me wearing a suit and tie will say to me, "Oh, Randy, you got dressed up today," even though he saw me the Saturday before all dressed up. I guess I just give off an aura of someone who's dressed casually. So even though the way we look should be the very last thing we are focused on during the days of awe, I would still like it to be recorded in the book of life that even leading services at home or co-leading services at home, I wore a suit and tie this Yontif again. Take this soul, living in my skin and bones. Take this soul and let it sing. Yahweh, Yahweh, always pain before a child is born. It's always dark before the dawn. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim. Allow us to lie and rise in peace. Shalom. Allow us to lie and rise in peace. Shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim. A nishima amuka, a deep breath, breathing in hope and optimism and faith and spirit. Dare to believe for all of us. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright, and everything's gonna be alright. 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 Ufros aleinu Sukkot, Sukkot shlomecha. Ufros aleinu Sukkot, shlomecha, and cover over us tonight with a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace where we shelter in place. A Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace over each and every one of us and those we love. A shelter of peace over those who are especially vulnerable, those who are ill and in mourning, those who are oppressed and victimized. A shelter of peace over those who are lonely. a shelter of peace over all creation, over everyone and everything that dwells on earth. May this night, the dawn of a new Jewish year, a time of renewal, may this night bring peace, wholeness, shalom. Amen. Peace. The fall, the autumn, is the time on the Jewish calendar that we go from one year to the next. But it is the springtime that gives us the first month of the year. It makes sense. Spring with nature reblooming, and fall with back to school, back to business. Both are seasons of renewal, as is Shabbat every week, whether a holiday falls on it like today or not. Shabbat, time to breathe deeply into our souls, to take moments of rest, reflection, rededication, and renewal. V'shamru, we keep Shabbat, so Shabbat keeps us.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. בני ובן בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי וביום השביעי שלוות וינפש, שלוות וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו לדורתם ברית עולם, לדורתם ברית עולם.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
So as we leave the Shema and its blessings, as we leave that part of our prayer service that is all about the gap between the people we have been and the people we are called to become, we take a moment before we enter into the Amidah for these ancient words of the Psalms that the rabbis pull out and they place here. But I sometimes feel like they place it here for a moment like this. We normally translate these words, Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agiti letecha, Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. But if you go back to the origin of these words, they are words born in tragedy. They are words that were told or ascribed to King David at the moment when he had found out that his child has died. And he is told that he should pray. And what he does is he says these words, Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, not the familiar words of kindness and uplift and please let me pray that we're used to, but instead words of heartache and maybe some cynicism, right? God, if you want my prayer today, you're going to have to do it yourself. And so I keep coming back to those words during this time because even when we're okay, we're not okay, right? I just think it's so true that right now we're living through, right, a global pandemic, and so no one is really okay. And so sometimes what we can do, the best what we can do, what we can aspire towards is that somehow our lips are opened up, and somehow in moments we find moments of praise and moments of joy. And so we enter into the Amidah with these words that even if we can't find prayer, our prayer is that we can somehow still pray. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 sifatai tiftach. Na 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 ufi yagid tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 sifatai tiftach. Na 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 ufi yagid tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 sifatai tiftach. Na 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 ufi yagid tehilatecha.
And so we continue in Tefillah with the Avot ve'Imahot. This is a poem by Antonio Machado. Traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking. By walking you make a path, and turning you look back at a way you will never tread again. So as we remember all those people who came before us, we look back before we look forward and think about the ways that we want to be better and we want to help make everybody else better and our world better in this upcoming year. So please join with me in the words of the Avot ve'Imahot.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Leah v'Elohei Rachel Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot U'Mevi Goel Livnei B'neihem L'ma'an Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. And so we continue now with the words of Zochrenu, the special edition for the High Holy Days, this plea that we be remembered.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי hakol.
So if you were standing, you may be seated. And we take a moment for silent prayer. The prayers of our hearts, the prayers that we think but maybe can't say yet. This is a poem by Leonard Nimoy. Some of you know that Daniel grew up loving Star Trek. We have a mixed marriage. But I love this poem. It's such a beautiful tribute to the season that we are in right now. It's called You and I. I am not immortal. Whatever I put off for later may never be. Whoever doesn't know now that I love them may never know. I have killed time. I have squandered it. I have lost days, weeks. As a man of unlimited wealth, might drop coins on the street and never look back. I know now that there will be an end, a limit. But there is time, valuable and precious time, to walk, talk, breathe. Time to touch, taste, care. To warm the child who is cold and lonely. There is time to love. I promise myself. I will. I am. I am ready. I am ready to give. I am ready to give and to receive. I am ready to give and to receive love.
So, one of the themes of the High Holy Days that we come back to over and over again is B'Sefer HaChaim, the book of life, this image that somehow the actions that we take can impact us being written into this Sefer Chaim. It's a powerful idea, right? Tzedakah, tshuva, tefillah, that there are ways that we can change, that when we do acts of tzedakah, of economic justice, the world is a little closer to how it should be. When we do acts of tefillah, when we gather together as a community, the world is a little more as it should be. And when we do tshuva, when we really look at the gap between the people we have been and the people we should have been and can yet become, the world is a little closer to the way that it should be. So there's this acuteness, I think, at these moments of the generations, and of this core prayer that we see each other written into this book of life. So I want to share a B'Sefer Chaim that I sang with one of my kids, with my son, our kid. This has been their lullaby since they were born. B'Sefer Chaim. B'Sefer Chaim, B'Sefer Chaim, Baracha, V'Shalom U'Fanasa Tova, B'Sefer Chaim, B'Sefer Chaim, B'Sefer Chaim, Baracha, V'Shalom U'Fanasa Tova. Nizacher v'nekatev lefanecha, lefanecha. Nizacher v'nekatev lefanecha, lefanecha. B'Sefer Chaim, B'Sefer Chaim, Baracha, V'Shalom U'Fanasa Tova. אנחנו בכל עמך בית ישראל, לחיים טובים ולשלום. ידעי,
B'Sefer Chaim, B'Sefer Chaim, Baracha, V'Shalom U'Fanasa Tova.
We continue with Avinu Malkeinu, Imenu Malkeinu, our parent, our guardian, our protector. A reminder when we most need it that there's so much in our world we don't have control over, so much that we can't plan for. And so we give ourselves over to the divine, to the holy rhythms of our world, to something greater than ourselves, to watch over us, to protect us, to guard us in this coming year. And this is our prayer for 5781.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu, Ve'alul aleinu, Aleinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu, Besefer Chaim Tovim, Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova, Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu.
So, amen. Amen. So my sermon tonight is actually a pre-produced video. I guess I figured as long as we need to be on a screen, I might as well play to the format. So it's going to be a little bit different. The joke around my house has been that now I get to fall asleep while watching my sermon, just like everybody else always does. But I really hope that I stay awake and you stay awake, and that I'm just excited to share this with everybody because it's something new in the midst of all of this challenge and difficulty. It was exciting to try something different with this form, and so roll tape. Yeah, we're at the J. Challenging as this time is, right? Wait a minute. Where is everybody? Sorry. I guess that's what passes for my humor during the pandemic. Just masking disappointment. In this case, the disappointing necessity that on this year's Days of Awe, we are neither at the Chase nor at the JCC. Instead, we are bringing in 5781 each in our own separate homes. I really wish that we could all be together. And it's hard to believe it's been 6 whole months since our lives dramatically narrowed back in March. Everybody has their own story of the last few days of semi-normalcy before everything changed. So for me, the countdown, I guess, starts on Sunday, March 8th, which was our Purim Carnival. And then the next evening, Monday, was our Purim Megillah reading celebration. And we had lots of people at the synagogue. As it turns out, those were the last 2 events that we held at CRC before the quarantine. And though there were just a handful of cases, if that, in St. Louis and even statewide, most of us were cognizant of the virus in sort of a far away, still kind of way. But we, there were a lot of the elbow bumps, a way of physically connecting in a way that, people thought maybe was safer. But, still lots of hugs still at that time. And then on Wednesday night, I came here where I'm making this video. I came here to the Broadway Oyster Bar in downtown St. Louis. I had plans to be with friends and have dinner and see a band. It's actually a Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young cover band. And again, I think everyone was becoming more aware of what was happening with the virus, and still there was still a sense of normalcy. Music was playing, and the sort of communal experience that is shared with live music, felt like it always felt. Then on Thursday, March 12th, that evening I had 2 bar mitzvah rehearsals with 2 wonderful young people getting ready for their bar mitzvahs. That same evening, the board of CRC was meeting, and when I called Amy Gage to check in, she told me that in fact the board had voted that night to close the synagogue, and so of course those bar mitzvahs were both rescheduled. And then in just a day or two, almost all of Missouri, including the schools and businesses, shut down. We sheltered in place. Most everything just seemed to stop all at once. Suddenly, time became jagged instead of moving forward like it always did before. Anxiety and near-apocalyptic paranoia descended. On that first night, I pulled out my home guitar, the one I've had since middle school. I put on my old fringed jacket. I was searching for creature comforts. And I made a video of Hashkivenu to post on Facebook, desperate to reach out and communicate to others and myself that I was still here, that we could still somehow be together, socially distant perhaps, but not socially isolated. I sang "Everything's Gonna Be All Right," and even though I always believe it when I sing it, a little part of me, I have to admit, in that moment felt like all bets were off. I did feel blessed to be able to huddle close to my family as our worlds narrowed. We learned new terms like flatten the curve. We used words we knew but thought were reserved for scientists and science fiction like pandemic. And we even dug up a chestnut I thought was only used in the Torah for the antiquated and outmoded laws of dealing with leprosy, quarantine. We'll be back to normal by the summer, I told my family and I told myself. Yet here we are, 6 months later. The handful of cases in March have turned into millions, and hundreds of thousands of people have died, struggling to breathe and often alone. We are living through countless disruptions and disappointments, missing pleasures we didn't realize we might not always have. There has been a transformation from what we thought was normal to forms of that are still unrecognizable. Our work, our kids' schools, our families' social and cultural lives, our finances, our economy, our health, travel plans, our very psyches. This is monumental. It's stunning. Frontline workers from every walk of life risk everything just to go about their day. When we are near anybody not in our bubble, be they friend, family member, or stranger, we must maneuver to stay away from them for fear that they will give the virus to us or that we will give it to them. Instead of trust and connection, there is a need for wariness of others and keeping our distance from them. I wonder what attitude cues our youngest children are picking up as we try to keep them safe. Community, which makes society loom so large in our hearts and our minds, is now reduced to screens. The reality of touch, for now, replaced by virtual images. While there are always individuals and families who go through traumas which turn their lives upside down for significant amounts of time, and whole societies, including ours, have had events that interrupt normalcy for months or even years, none of us have ever before witnessed an event like this that impacts nearly everyone on Earth for such an extended duration and counting. My life up to now, like yours, has been cruising along, punctuated by ups and downs, the occasional high drama. I guess I just expected more of the same until I was through. I figured the world wars were in the rear view before I was born, and it looked like, unfortunately, some climate change disaster might wreak havoc after I died. But here we are now, living through this Great Depression-like stretch of history. Most everything, it seems, is up in the air, like we're in a movie, but we don't know the ending. But when I start going down that road too long, I check myself. Because for sure, events throughout history have thrown people hardships far worse than what we're going through, what most of us are going through. This altered rhythm of life due to the quarantine has even given many of us blessings, unexpected blessings, including for me, the unexpected increase in time spent with my adult children. Is some of what I am feeling a result of simply getting too used to all my comforts and getting too used to the smorgasbord of activities, events, and opportunities that were part of contemporary life? For me, at least, there is this jarring tension between overstating what is happening and understating it, and I'm constantly toggling between the two. There are so many pieces of life at this time that are so heartbreaking. Until I went to Chicago a few weeks ago to attend a family funeral, I hadn't been able to see my 80-year-old parents since December. Gabe's freshman and Zoe's senior year in college are utterly unrecognizable. Amy and I can't celebrate the high holidays with all of you as we have joyfully for the past 20 years. Everybody has their own tales of woe. For people at every stage of life, there is at least one, usually more, important thing that is not how it ought to be. I ache, for example, for kindergartners trying to learn online when they are so eager for learning and interaction, but also for elders who must be even more isolated than the rest of us at a time when they so badly need human reassurance. The palette of life has dimmed. We miss the richness and fullness of what we used to know. We have been humbled by this virus, surrendering more control than we are used to. And yet, we're here. We are pretty adaptable, aren't we? Truth is, despite the singularity of this historical moment, some normalcy has crept into this emergency. Inwardly, most of us just can't keep up a constant state of alarm for so long. And so the virus is worse now than it was in the spring, we try to recalibrate. We almost have no choice but to recalibrate how we're feeling about it. Outwardly, well, for starters, I don't know about you, but I stopped wearing these ridiculous gloves I obsessively used whenever I ventured out back in April. Most of us, thankfully, have figured out how, within the restrictions, to keep going, mind, body, and spirit. And all that we are going through, and it is a lot. It is a huge challenge, but it is mitigated by the knowledge that it is all for the common good, for public health, to keep one another safe, to help minimize illness, to save lives. So I'd like to offer up the image of a Havdalah candle, even though it's Friday night. The traditional ceremony that bids farewell to Shabbat and greets the rest of the week, Havdalah, speaks about the separation between Chodesh, holy or extraordinary, and Chol, which is secular or ordinary. However, the candle, the main symbol of Havdalah, belies the idea that Chodesh and Chol are utterly walled off from each other. The candle, you see, is braided, twisted, suggesting that what is holy and what is considered ordinary are actually fluid, more likely to blend into one another than to remain distinct. Though this time we are living through is incredibly challenging, it certainly is extraordinary. At the same time, as I said, a bit of the ordinary has wound its way back into life as we now know it. And it works the other way as well. As much as all of us, desperately await a return to the life we were used to, there are aspects born from and fueled by this extraordinary time of pandemic and quarantine that will hopefully blend into the future when ordinary finally returns. Crucially, for example, I'm thinking of the heightened consciousness around Black Lives Matter. As someone who was in Ferguson almost every night for months in 2014, but who spent this summer of protests observing from the sidelines, it was obvious to me that the involvement was deeper, wider, and yes, whiter this time around. The summer of COVID is also the season that the movement became mainstream. Part of the reason was clearly the sheer brutality of George Floyd's death. But sadly, there have been shocking cases before. Tamir Rice, Eric Gardner, Sandra Bland, to name just a few. I believe the pandemic is playing a major role. These last few months, when we all feel so vulnerable, there is heightened sensitivity for people who are afraid, who are victimized, who are vulnerable, even when there isn't a virus hunting them down. And because we are all paying such close attention to everything pandemic, everything COVID-19, we cannot ignore that those who are already disadvantaged and oppressed, overwhelmingly people who are poor, Black, and brown, they are being disproportionately harmed by this virus. More illness and death, more economic and educational pain. Those with privilege and more resources, while certainly affected by COVID and its endless ramifications, are still able to soften the blow. Because we all feel on the edge right now, we can relate more easily to the demand coming from the streets that it is now or never for social changes that should have come at least a generation ago. Thus, the pandemic itself is highlighting inequality and seems to be forcing a true reckoning. And I pray going back to normal will not include turning away from this new commitment to finally doing the work to dismantle racism. Roman Krznaric is known as a public philosopher. Good gig if you can get it. His latest book is called The Good Ancestor. His message would be familiar to those of us who have been listening to Rabbi Susan over all these years. Basically, he says that we have tremendous responsibilities as the eventual ancestors of children not yet born, an obligation to them to not fall prey to what he calls short-termism. Instead of thinking only of our own generation, Krznaric teaches we need to live by what he calls cathedral thinking, laying the groundwork of preparation for events like pandemics that might not come around for centuries. We should start building, even though we may not see it finished, though we will surely not be the ones that benefit from it. In other words, can our time living with this virus push us to do for our descendants in the future what our ancestors in the past often failed to do for us? In quarantine, I've been reflecting on a song by the rock band U2 and their songwriter Bono called 13 There Is a Light. It is a newer song, and though it just predates COVID, it is teaching me a great deal about the moment we find ourselves in. I imagine Bono wrote this song 13 for his young adult children who, like us all right now, are struggling with a world that even before coronavirus, even before the quarantine, a world that just seems done. He urges them to keep a sliver of the hope and idealism of their childhood, to maintain a softness even while so much hardness, so much hardens around them. Are you tough enough to be kind? Do you know your heart has its own mind? Our kids would not believe us if we tried to tell them that there's no cruelty, there are no disappointments. They certainly wouldn't believe it if we tried to tell them that now. But maybe they would understand if we said that darkness gathers around the light, that we only know the situation is awful right now because righteousness and truth exists. It exists as a contrast. Like the braided Havdalah candle illustrates, the bleakness soon twists around to reveal goodness, even if for now that goodness is barely detected. Hope is not walled off, is not separate from despair. Each of those are wound up in the other. Hold on, hold on. Bono sings that this is a song for someone like his kids. But he also acknowledges he needs it as well. And so he adds someone like me. The world is far from ideal these days. But that very realization should remove any doubt that there is a light. Don't let it go out.
I know the world is done, but you don't have to be. I've got a question for the child in you before it leaves. Are you tough enough to be kind? Do you know your heart has its own mind? Darkness gathers around the light. Hold on, hold on. There is a light we can't always see. If there is a world we can't always be. If there is a dark, then we shouldn't doubt that there is a light. Don't let it go out. And this is a song for someone like you, someone like me, someone like you.
May we have the compassion to help each other through this pandemic and not turn away from all the sickness, risk, loss, and human costs we all are facing. May we have the wisdom to safely weave some normalcy, though, into our strange new circumstance. And may we have the strength to blend the difficult truths we have learned from this unprecedented period into shaping a post-pandemic future, back to normal with major improvements. And finally, may we emerge into that renewed time, a restored faith, our unity and community is repaired, and into a new year, 5781, a year of peace and blessing. I always wanted to have a gospel amen choir punctuate one of my sermons. Sometimes this format surprises us. I love and I miss you all. I am still trying to throw my arms around the whole world. L'shana tova to you and yours. Please stay well. Shalom.
The great Aleinu. We say it twice a year. Once on Rosh HaShanah, once on Yom Kippur. And that's its original place in the Malkeinu part of the additional prayer on Rosh HaShanah, and then later in the additional service of Yom Kippur that introduces the story of what the high priest did in the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur afternoon. Then later, by the 13th century, it comes into all our liturgy, Sabbath and daily, with the more common and more pedestrian 19th century major key melody of the Aleinu that we all know. When we come to Aleinu, we are almost cooked. We have moved from the singular Shema Yisrael, listen Israel, to the plural of Aleinu. It's on us. Aleinu. It's on us. That's the loftiness of our holy language. We ought to be able to speak poetry with the simplest of language. This is a good example. Aleinu. It's on us. How can we not get that? It's on us. The congregation commissioned Bonya to place a lot of this music in its context and to create new arrangements and to reclaim some from the past and create some new. Bonya was my teacher and my big brother. I learned everything I needed about these matters from him. He was both the freest and also the most loyal to standards artists that I have known. He was free in improvisation and unafraid to enter the space beyond comfort where creativity happens. If you went there with him, it was your re-education. He was also loyal to roots, and he insisted that once a year, during these holidays, we had to bow to these older, more authentic forms. When we say, V'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim, where we bow and we bless and we thank, it's literal. We get down and kiss the earth. Excuse me while I kiss the earth. Be thankful. Be respectful. Thus this melody. Thus the great Aleinu. Aleinu Hagadol. Thus.
May the memory of good people bless our days, we say. That's the challenge, especially tonight as we are facing a world without Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the great warrior for justice, who lived such a remarkable life by just doing what was right. So we will miss her, and we will pray that her memory does bless our days, and especially the days to come, and that we will live our lives to honor Ruth, whose Hebrew name was Yitta Ruchel Bat Cyril Valeah. Yitta Ruchel Bat Cyril Valeah. And we put her name along with all the many names that we are thinking about at this time. You know, when we're in person on this night, I begin to receive your notes, those precious little slips of paper with names to read for the Yizkor service on Yom Kippur afternoon. I hold those notes. I read every one, and I watch for them, because I know that every name is a whole world to each of you. Ruth was a whole world to us, but I'm thinking about her family, because nobody suffers more than the people you belong to. Anila Dodi Vadodi Li, the Song of Songs says, I am my beloved and my beloved is mine. What does that mean? Yes, it means we love each other dearly. But it also means that when you belong to someone and they are taken from you, it does break your heart. So I know that many of us are feeling heartbroken about Yitta Ruchel, the notorious RBG. But we are also missing the names on those precious notes that you give me each year. Names that I know are whole worlds for us. Names that are the sacred garments for the loved ones whose deaths have broken our hearts. Names of so many whose lives have given our lives meaning. And this year, we will add those who have died from this pandemic of COVID-19, from the disparities of racism, from our refusal to do all that we can to stop gun violence, from systemic and global poverty, and from the effects of the climate crisis and the illnesses that are caused by toxic greed. So many of these deaths we could control. We will do our best this year at our Yizkor service on Yom Kippur afternoon to honor and to remember loved ones by sharing their names. But I will not be able to collect your papers, so I will ask you, in your homes, in your home sanctuaries, what you might think about doing, and I know this is something that we are doing, is set up a table with your yahrzeit candles, with pictures, if you can, of your loved ones whose presence you're missing physically, and with their names. Think of the names who cannot be with us physically. You might even write them on a slip of paper. Think of those people who are not with us physically, who are leaving that space at your tables, beside you, and in your hearts. Make a place for them as we draw the upper and the lower worlds closer together with the words of our Kaddish. Words that promise that our resistance to despair is to live each day remembering and honoring each and every one of those we have lost, of those names, that the memory of these good people will bless our days.
Meaning of Remembrance.
Yigdal v'yikadash Divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayachon v'yamachon v'chayedachol Beit Yisrael v'agalah uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Leolam Omei Omaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei Tekudasha Barichu Le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbachata v'nechmata Za'amiran be'alma ve'imru Amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael ve'imru Amen. Osei Shalom berumav Uya asei Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol Yoshvei Tevel ve'imru Amen. May the source of peace bring peace to all of you who mourn. As we say together, Amen. We go from Kaddish to Kiddush. And so we offer with the same root, Kodesh, holiness, but also from the root of separation, right? Something that means you can take what is ordinary and you can raise it up and find the extraordinary in it. Whether it is for Kaddish, lifting up our broken hearts by promising that we will live more fully, love more fiercely in this prayer for peace that we offer, and Kiddush, finding the joy amidst all of the sorrow and the brokenness, to find the light with love.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'am ורוממנו מכל לשון וקידשנו במצוותיו ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה את יום השבת הזה ואת יום הזיכרון הזה יום תרועה מקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ודברך אמת וקיים לעד ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת וישראל ויום הזיכרון לחיים.
Before we end, we offer a blessing. So I'll try to do this together as we say. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha. May God bless you and guard you and keep you safe.
Ya'er Adonai
Someone else?
panav elecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. And may the light of the candles, the light in our hearts, the light from the universe, all be part of making this new year filled with enlightenment and love.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
For us, for all of the world, for our broken city, for our broken country, for our broken state, for all of us, right? None of us, I think, are really okay right now, but that all of us should be able to find just a little bit more peace, that there should be peace in our homes and peace in our hearts and peace outside and peace for all of us. And we say, Amen.
Amen.
And Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova.
at the beginning of a new year, we pray for a blessing.
The spirit of wisdom and understanding.
Amen.
The spirit of insight and knowledge.
Amen.
Together, the spirit of knowledge and reverence.
Amen.
May we overcome trouble, pain, and sorrow.
Amen.
May our days and our years increase.
Amen. Yehi ratzon lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avuteinu, shetechadesh aleinu shana tova umetuka.
Eternal our God and God of our people, renew us for a good year.
Amen. 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 May it be a good year. May it be a healthy year. May it be a year of peace. May it be a year of peace. May it be a good year. May it be a healthy